Hello, my name is Alana Carson, and I am part of the music business program at Full Sail University. I have chosen to do my presentation on Peter Grant, manager of Led Zeppelin, known as one of the greatest rock bands in history. Peter Grant was born on April 5, 1935, and was raised by his mother out of wedlock, which was frowned upon during that time. Together, Grant and his mother lived in poverty. Peter Grant dropped out of school and began working to support himself and his mother at 13. He was a factory worker and stagehand before entering the National Service at 18. After his service, he worked as a bouncer at the famous Rock and Roll Epicenter, Two Eyes Coffee Bar, which was owned by wrestler Paul Lincoln, also known as Dr. Death, and received the opportunity to become wrestler Count Massimo because of his build, 6'5" and over 250 pounds. His wrestling career led to a brief acting career, which led to his own entertainment transport business, driving bands to their performances. His entertainment transport business earned him the opportunity of becoming a tour manager hired by Don Arden for Chuck Berry, Gene Vincent, and the Animals. From that he became an artist manager and started a management company with Mickey Most, whom he met while working at Two Eyes. Together, they started managing the Yardbirds before Grant bought out Most and became their sole manager. In Peter Grant's earliest career as an entertainment transporter, he worked with the Shadows and other London-based bands. He met and tour managed Chuck Berry, Gene Vincent, and the Animals through promoter Don Arden. The first artists he managed were the Flintstones and She Trinity, but he did not find much success until manager Napier Bell asked him to take over the Yardbirds in 1966, where he established a strong relationship with guitarist Jimmy Page. Upon the split of the Yardbirds, Jimmy Page remained under Grant's management, and they formed Led Zeppelin in 1968, which is Grant's most popular success. Peter Grant was known for having an aggressive management style, and not necessarily to those he managed, but to everyone else in the business. His son Warren says, "He knew when to push people's buttons at what point in time or what needed to be done to get the job done. His number one thing was to protect that band, and he would use whatever means he needed to make sure that his band had what they needed to be brilliant at what they do." He was dedicated to Led Zeppelin and gave them full creative control over their music, because of his trust in them. He was excellent at getting his way in favor of Led Zeppelin. Grant claimed his ability to say no as one of his greatest strengths. Some of his business management decisions for Led Zeppelin can be deemed non-traditional as well. Among his infamies were some great decisions that he made for Led Zeppelin, including the non-traditional ones. In a monetary perspective, his greatest decision was negotiating a $200,000 deal with Atlantic Records, which would have been equivalent to $1 million today. Led Zeppelin signed a contract with Atlantic Records for 5 years with a $200,000 advance and full control over writing, publishing, and recording. Grant was able to execute this deal, and Atlantic Records hadn't even witnessed Led Zeppelin perform live. Grant believes the best deal he made, not in a monetary perspective, was no soundtracks. Within Led Zeppelin's contract with Atlantic Records, it stated that Atlantic does not have any rights to Led Zeppelin film soundtracks. When The Song Remains the Same came out, Atlantic tried to claim it as a live album, but couldn't because it was a soundtrack album for the film and therefore they did not have the rights. In another monetary perspective, Grant negotiated a 90-10 split with promoters for ticketed performances when averagely promoters received 40 to 50% of the cut. He was able to convince promoters that 10% was enough considering how much the band was making for each show, which is around $1 million in today's time. Among Peter Grant's non-traditional decisions, one was limiting Led Zeppelin's media exposure. I personally do not know if this was a good or bad decision on Grant's part, because while Led Zeppelin was extremely successful with limited media exposure, what if they had been even more successful with it? Led Zeppelin appeared on a show once, but the sound quality back then was so bad that Grant said it'd never happen again. He even passed up a $1 million offer for Led Zeppelin's 1970 New Year's Eve performance in Germany to be streamed to America through satellite, because the sound quality would be poor and he did not want Led Zeppelin's American career to be blown by it. Passing on $1 million in 1970 seems like a bad decision to me, but if the satellite sound had ruined their career like Grant speculated, it was a good one. Another decision that no one will ever truly know was good or bad that Grant made was passing on managing Queen. All his time was devoted to Led Zeppelin and he knew it. His response to Queen was, "Fellas, I would love to do it, but I haven't got that many hours in the day." He speculated that either himself, Queen, or Led Zeppelin would be suffering if he agreed to be their manager. One bad decision he made, with good intent, was creating Swan Song Records to give Led Zeppelin more creative control. He ended up regretting setting it up because he didn't have the time to manage Led Zeppelin and run their label, among signing other artists to it. Because of his dedication to Led Zeppelin, he did not give other bands signed to Swan Song as much attention. In the end, Led Zeppelin was his only true successful band. But he was fine with that because he never wanted to be an empire builder. Grant's inability to control his temper created many bad decisions for himself. In 1977, Grant and 3 Led Zeppelin colleagues were convicted of battery after hospitalizing one of Bill Graham's security men at a show in Oakland, California. Additionally, he beat up bootleggers and destroyed their equipment with water and an axe at Bath Festival. He justified it by saying he did it himself, so at least he knew it was done. The most effective manager is one whose belief in the artist is deep enough to be the basis for every decision made on his or her behalf, whether it is believing in the artist's potential or believing in who the artist is. Grant gave Led Zeppelin full control over writing lyrics, creating music, and assembling performances because he trusted them. In turn, Led Zeppelin trusted Grant to make all the management decisions. Because of this, Peter Grant and Led Zeppelin's relationship is known as one of the strongest in the music business. Led Zeppelin broke up in 1980 upon the death of band member John Bonham, but their legacy lives on, and so does Peter Grant's. In 1995, Peter Grant was inducted to the Roll of Honor at the first Music Managers Forum, devoting his success to the great talent he was able to work with. He died 2 months later, on November 21, 1995, at age 60 from a heart attack. Since 1966, the Music Managers Forum gives the annual Peter Grant Award in recognition of Grant to recognize excellence in management. Peter Grant's son, Warren, is also continuing his legacy. Warren manages the British tribute band Hats Off to Led Zeppelin and is creating a documentary on his father's life on what he was like as both a father and a manager, in collaboration with former Atlantic Records executive Jerry Greenberg. Warren says his dad was a real people person. You couldn't tell whether he was talking to the head of a department, or a manager, or promoter, or just the person that was coming in during the patron, or the chauffeur. He would look after everybody the same. Warren learned to treat those he encounters as a manager the same way, speaking to people of all positions and saying goodbye to everyone after a show. Peter Grant summed up how to be a good manager in one sentence: have great belief in your artist. Applying the lesson of deep belief and trust between an artist and manager, as learned from Peter Grant's relationship with Led Zeppelin, would be beneficial to Jeremiah Daly's career. Peter Grant and I both share the fact that we know nothing about music, other than hearing what we like, what hits us in the heart. Leaving the music entirely to Led Zeppelin's creation because he believed in them was a smart decision, and I believe making that same decision with Jeremiah would be beneficial to his career. I have no business putting my 2 cents in when I don't know anything about music. I should put my mind strictly on managing the artist's career as Grant did. Proving my credibility and commitment as a manager to Jeremiah, I hope that he would have the same trust and belief in me to accomplish everything on the business side, so that his sole focus can be his music.